Hello and welcome to Cole Red Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Happy 4th of July to those of you from the United States, and happy Thursday to those of you from everywhere else. There's a lot going on in the game right now, including the new Fragment event for Packmaster Shyek, which launched earlier today. So in today's video, I am going to be giving you my no-fail fusion plan for that event. But in addition, I want to talk about this blue portal. So even if you are not going after the fusion, you're going to want to hear this news. I hope you're ready for it. Let's get started. Normally at this time, I would say something along the lines of, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and consider joining our Discord community. Unfortunately, I've been saying that phrase for months and it doesn't seem to be effective anymore. So I want to change things up a little bit. I'm going to ask for your help with that today. Now, I don't know if you know this about YouTube videos, but you hear about the algorithm. The things that viewers can do to help a video in the algorithm are pretty simple. One is if a video is recommended to you and you watch it for at least a minute, then it's likely to count as a view and recommend that video to more people. In addition, if you hit the like button or if you leave a comment, those are the three things that basically really influence the success of a video as soon as it drops. And the first 6 hours are really important for the success of a video, especially for a topic like this, which doesn't have a long shelf life, right? We're talking about a fusion event that's only 2 weeks long, but nobody starts the fusion halfway through. So this video is probably going to be effective for the next couple of days, and that's it. Now, my videos typically pull somewhere between 7% and 11% like vote. So about 10% of my viewers actually like my video, even though all of the other viewers continue to come back. And I would like to do something with this video if we can. I would really like to see if we can get to 20% of likes on this video. Now, I have no idea if that's going to work, but I want to see what happens if it does. First of all, if it makes the video more successful, that's great. Hopefully it'll get the word out about what we're doing here at Cole Red Plays, maybe help some more players and help grow the channel at the same time. But in addition, it will give me information about exactly what I need to do to continue to grow this channel and be successful, because we've been doing this for a year. And although I'm proud of what we've accomplished, we still have a ways to go to reach our goals. So if you're willing to help us out with this today, I would highly appreciate it. So please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and consider joining our Discord community. And really, thanks for all the support. It's been a wonderful year. Let's get back to your video. I want to start by talking about this blue portal, because even if you're not going for the fusion, you want to hear this. There is a guaranteed champion event going on right now, but there is a progressive chance event starting tomorrow. Now, I don't know why Plarium's doing this. They've hit us with back-to-back-to-back ancient shard events. And now there's a guaranteed champion with a summon rush that we need for the fusion, but the progressive chance wasn't announced until today, and it doesn't start until tomorrow. So if you haven't pulled your shards already, you want to hold off and wait for the progressive chance event, because it overlaps fine with a guaranteed champion event. In fact, I even think it's a good opportunity for those of you who want to empower epics to potentially choose an epic, a progressive epic, and go after multiple copies of that epic as well. As far as Shemnath is concerned, I actually don't think this is a super high value champion. She's not bad. She's a pretty good arena nuker. She's got this A3 that attacks all enemies 2 times. The first hit removes all buffs. The second hit will ignore 20% of the target's defense against targets that have no active buffs. So if she fully strips the buffs off a champion, she'll ignore 20% of their defense. Remember, she is an affinity champion. She can weak hit. This also requires accuracy, but she does very well in arena. The problem is, I think arena nukers are a dime a dozen. There are 30 good arena nukers out there that you could get. So it's rare that anybody would really have to push for Shemnath here. If you have extra fragments, if you're a low spender, if you like the way that she looks, or you're just tired of not having a top tier arena nuker, then go ahead and get your guaranteed champion. Obviously, I don't have the fragments, so I'm not going to be going after it. I pulled my fragments during the 2 times event, and that's fine with me because I don't really need Shemnath here. But again, if you are pulling shards this weekend, I highly recommend waiting till tomorrow for the progressive chance event to get given an opportunity at other legendaries like Duchess Lilitu and Elva Autumnborn. also those epic copies. Okay, now let's take a look at the Fusion champ. Okay, here he is, Shyek. Now I want to update you on my assessment of this champion. I've been watching videos from other content creators, and it feels like this is one of those few fusions where people have a wide range of opinions on how good this champion is going to be. I rate him somewhere around like a B+ champion. I think he's going to be pretty solid. He's going to be useful for maybe normal and hard Hydra. He's a very good Hydra champion. I think he's interesting in terms of theory crafting. And there is that potential that somewhere down the line, Plarium releases a new, maybe legendary Hound champion that could synergize with this guy in the future. Now, all of that is speculation. I don't know. But as far as he is right now, I think he's a good champion. If this is the first fusion that you're considering for your account, I think he could provide value, especially if you already have Fellhound as a campaign farmer. For those of you who have a campaign farmer or Fellhound, great, because he synergizes really well with Fellhound specifically, and he also helps you out in a couple of other places. I think the most interesting option here would be as a taunt champion for Hydra, right? He's going to give you some interesting opportunities to theory craft some Hydra teams, even maybe some unkillable Hydra teams. So it's not a bad thing to have a 2-turn taunt on a 3-turn cooldown. It really isn't. And remember, he can also be a great mischief tank, because if you have one Hound, then all of the buffs that he puts on himself can't be stolen. And he puts 3 buffs on himself that he doesn't put on anybody else. He puts taunt, reflect damage, and a shield all just on himself. And that's going to make him really easy to turn into a mischief tank. So again, I think he's a pretty good champion. If you're in the early or mid game, picking up a champion like this would be helpful, but not overwhelming. So if you need to skip it, or if you don't quite have the resources and you don't want to stretch and you want to wait for a better fusion next month, that's certainly a viable option. I'm going to be going for Packmaster Shyek because I think he's kind of cool and he offers some interesting possibilities. And I've seen some fun stuff on some other content creators' channels. So definitely he's worth having in the vault for me for now, and maybe he'll come out of the vault in the future. But like I said, I don't think he's a must fuse. I also don't think he's a must skip. I think he's somewhere in the middle, and you can judge for yourself. But like I said, there's a wide range of opinions out there, so I want to kind of update you with how I felt about the Packmaster here. Pretty cool champion. I like the design at least, and I'm going to be going for it. Okay, so now it is time to take a look at the Fragment event calendar. I wanted to point out right away that there are 130 fragments, 110 of which are available from tournaments and events, meaning only 20 come from tournament leaderboards. Now, we haven't seen this in a while. It's been a long time since we've had 10 additional fragments during a Fragment event calendar, unless there was an additional shard event, like an additional summon rush or an additional champion chase or something like that, even a hero's path. So this is the way that fusions used to be, and it makes it a little bit easier because it means you can potentially skip or miss up to 2 5-fragment events, right? So, you know, you could skip the Fire Knight tournament here, and you could skip the Dungeon Divers event here if you had to, or if you failed them. It doesn't mean that you're instantly done with the fusion. So this is a little bit more of a friendly format. I'm glad to see Plarium going back to this older format. I don't like when the extra fragments are all embedded in shard events. I think that's really unfriendly, especially to free-to-play players and low spenders. So looking at this calendar, we're going to plan with the extra fragments in mind. Now, remember, it's okay to get extra fragments, right? It's okay to get extra fragments because there's now a way to spend those fragments with the High Mother mod mechanic in the portal if you haven't actually gotten her yet. I haven't, so I'm okay with extra fragments. And typically what I like to do is I like to plan to skip events later in a fragment event or a fusion event, so that if I happen to like fail on an event, I haven't built that into the plan. I don't like skipping early events, right? But you can, it's up to you. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on. Now, today is Thursday, July 4th. I would say that the only thing that you want to start today, you want to hold off on the Ice Golem, and you want to hold off on your Summon Rush until the progressive chance hits, right? Unless you're just pulling Sacred Shards, then you can pull now if you want, if you don't care about the progressive chance. But I'd still think, even if you're pulling Sacred Shards, you probably want to, because I'm going to go for Duchess Lilitu, that's for sure. So anyway, hold off on these 2 events. Obviously, Dungeon Divers doesn't start until then either. So the only thing that you should be doing in this first day is campaign, for champion training. Start your food farming right now for the next few hours until these events start. I think we're about 8 hours away from the Dungeon Divers event going live. Now, my plan looking forward is to skip 5 fragments worth of events. And the hardest ones typically are the Dungeon Divers events or the champion training events. But I like doing the champion training events because they often offer legendary tomes as rewards. So I'm probably going to be doing the champion training event and the champion training tournament, and maybe even going after some extra fragments here, depending on, you know, how competitive my bracket happens to be. But so even without these 10 fragments, I will be going for each champion training event and tournament. Now you could skip one, right? If you want to save 10 fragments, you could skip one. That is entirely up to you. But I'm going to be skipping this Dungeon Divers, and I'm going to show you why in just a moment. So I always like to be efficient with my energy usage. We know that tournaments take 2K energy. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to embed the 4K energy from Ice Golem and Fire Knight here in this Dungeon Divers event. You can see that's right there. That means after this point, I probably won't be doing any more Fire Knight. So if I have to do extra, I either have to do extra energy in the front of the Fire Knight or at the back of Ice Golem, probably the front of Fire Knight, because Fire Knight drops better gear. Now, in addition, I'm going to be doing champion training a little bit in Ice Golem, some in campaign, and then the rest in the tavern because I've got plenty of brews. So that's easy enough for me to do. As far as artifact enhancement events are concerned, I used to recommend skipping them if you didn't have the silver, or like you didn't want to spend the silver, even if you did have the silver. But for myself, I have started to do all the artifact enhancement events because I can get the silver. It's not too hard to get the silver. And I have to roll up my gear at some point. So I may as well roll it up during a period of time where I can get extra value for rolling it up. So artifact enhancement events reward me for doing something that I have to do anyway. It's just that I have to do a lot of it in a short window, and that can be a little bit tricky. So if you need to skip an artifact enhancement event because you just don't have the silver, you could even skip 2. And remember that each artifact enhancement event is 20 million silver roughly. The best I've ever done is about 15 million. The worst I've ever done is about 22, 23 million. So it's usually somewhere around 20 million. I'm going to do all 3 artifact enhancement events. I'm not going to skip any of them, but you certainly could if you wanted to. Now, the reason I'm skipping this Dungeon Divers event number 2 is because I'm going to slot this Dragon Tournament into the next Dungeon Divers event here. So here's the 2K energy for the Dragon Tournament, and then 2K energy for the Spider Tournament. And again, I'll probably drop the extra energy into Spider, and that will take the Dungeon Divers 3 event and solve that problem. The Champion Chase Tournament and the Summon Rush we'll talk about in just a moment. The other thing that we have to worry about is the Classic Arena Takedowns. Those don't really require much. If you are in Gold 3, 4, or 5, it's pretty easy. Even if you're in like Silver 4, it's not too bad. You need to be active. You need to be focused on it. But by planning to get 105 fragments, I have a little leeway in case I mess something up. Now, I can't mess up a champion training tournament. I can't mess up the Summon Rush, but I could mess up like a Classic Arena Takedown. I could mess up the Spider Tournament or something like that. I could mess up something and still have that 5 extra fragments waiting for me. So that is what I am planning for, to get 105 fragments. Okay, so I'm also going to be doing the Champion Chase Tournament and the Summon Rush. And so just skipping that one, yeah, that's 105 fragments there. The Dragon Tournament, Fire Knight Tournament, Ice Golem Tournament, Dungeon Divers event, and then all the artifact enhancement events. Yeah, so those are all the things I'm doing. Now I want to talk about the Summon Rush and the Champion Training Tournament for just a second right now. Okay, so as you can see, the Summon Rush and the Champion Chase are both 15 points. Now, typically that means you get 5 fragments and then 10 fragments. You get 5 fragments and then 10 fragments. So there is another option for some of you out there to skip the 10 fragments in one or the other event. You could skip 10 fragments in the Summon Rush or 10 fragments in the Champion Chase Tournament and then get every other event. That means you can't skip this Dungeon Divers event like I'm going to. You would have to get that Dungeon Divers event and not miss anywhere else. If you're going to skip one of these two, the safer one might be to skip the Champion Chase Tournament because it's at the back end of the fusion event, so that if you happen to mess up, you have a little bit of leeway. You can say, no, I have to do the champion chase tournament. Meaning if you skip these 10 fragments and then you mess up and you don't complete this dungeon divers, then you've failed, right? But if you've gotten the 10 fragments and then you mess up the dungeon divers, you can still say, okay, now I have to complete the champion chase tournament as well. And if I have the shards or the fragment champions in the portal, I can go and get it. So again, it's probably safer to skip the 10 points on the champion chase tournament, although it might be better to skip the summon rush, like in terms of efficiency, because I do think that Friday, July 12th should be a 2 times event. Now, in this case, we're looking at probably 2 times sacreds, although again, you never know. They kind of change it from time to time, but we had 2 times ancients just a week ago. And so in a week, we should be having 2 times sacreds. And so that means it's good to do a champion chase during a 2 times event, because you got a better chance of pulling more points, right? Getting more points from the champions that you receive. So in this particular case, I'm going to be doing the summon rush because it's early and I want to make sure that I lock it in. I will be also doing the champion chase, and I'm going to be going for the full 15 points in both cases. Now, for the summon rush, it's likely that you're going to need 3,150 points, which means 6 sacreds, and then maybe 150 mystery shards, which is what I usually do. You could also do ancient shards. If you are pulling for the Shemnath, if you're going the 150 ancient shards, that gets you enough by itself to complete the summon rush, I think, or close to it. Let me just check. Yes, so there are 40 points per ancient shard. That's double. Normally it's 20 points per ancient, but for this particular summon rush, it's 40 points per ancient. So if you pull, 150 shards, you're getting 6,000 points. You're getting a lot more than you need. There are some additional rewards because it is an event, so there's a long reward path, and you can pick up some extra tomes and stuff, and that's pretty cool if you go the ancient route. This may actually make you think about pulling ancients anyway, to reduce the number of sacreds that you need to pull. I have about 15 ancients right now, and if I pulled 15 ancients, that's 600 points. That saves me a sacred shard, so I could do that instead. And you definitely want to consider that, because when it's worth 40 per ancient, and I don't need the ancients for anything. I don't care about using them basically for anything. I would probably just be pulling them during the champion chase tournament or saving them for a CVC. So this way I can save a sacred, and I may go ahead and do that. Could get me a few extra epics in terms of the progressive as well. Now, as far as the champion chase tournament is concerned, you usually need more points over here. But remember that the points come from the champions that you get, not the shards that you pull. Based on recent history, it could be as many as 4,000 points here for the champion chase. I don't know if they're going to do a modification like they're doing with the summon rush in terms of the points. Normally, I think you get, right, it's 10 points for a rare, 250 for an epic, and then 500 points for a legendary. And then if it's voids, you get 50 points for a rare, 350 points for an epic, a void epic, and 650 points, I think, for a void legendary. So, based on that, you're going to have to pull a lot of shards. If you're just using sacred shards like I intend to use, then it's going to be a lot of shards. Plus, you can pull the Fragment Champion. So I'm going to probably be using Fragment Champions from my portal, Doom Tower Champions that I've saved up just for this purpose. But again, if you burn through all of your Ancients here, you're not going to have the Ancients to spend during the Champion Chase. That's usually what I do during a Champion Chase, is I use Ancients there because they're the cheapest and they mean the least in other places. But if there is a 2-time Sacred event, then I'll be pulling Sacreds then as well, and we'll hope to not have to pull too many sacred shards to get our points. Okay, so that is it for this fusion plan. I hope that I helped you. I hope you have figured out what you would like to do. Not everybody's approach is going to be the same with this one, right? There's a little bit more leeway, a little bit more forgiveness in terms of figuring out a path that's successful based on the resources that you have and the time that you have in game. By the way, by being able to skip that Dungeon Divers event, and just so you know, the only thing I'm going to have to do here from this point in time until this point in time is just a champion training and an artifact enhancement event, right? And I don't even have to do that then. I'll probably do that over here, so I don't even have to do that then. So all I have to do for 3 days is run a little bit of campaign, and that's it. That gives me a nice break in the middle of the fragment event to kind of play a little bit less, take a little bit of a breather, maybe spend some time with the family. So I highly recommend going that route if you have the shards to do it. All right, thanks so much for hanging out. Let me know in the comments below, are you going to be going for Packmaster Shyek, or are you going to be skipping this one? And also, if you are going for them, are you going to go for all 110 fragments, or are you going to skip a particular 10? Let me know which ones you're skipping. Okay, I have been Colred. Thanks so much for hanging out. I will see you in another video soon.